So I have cleared the energy from previous readings with an amethyst, so we can now begin to shuffle the cards. So the basic question that I'm asking is, what wisdom or lessons does Taurus have to look forward to at this particular full moon lunar eclipse? What is Taurus either closing out or is in need of clearing or healing or letting go of, because we know that's something you're not overly keen on at the full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. I will be doing a general reading, by the way, a more in-depth astrological reading for IGTV, for Instagram. So if you're interested in that, then head over to my Instagram account, Astrology Sphere, and you can check out the more sort of astrology orientated forecast there. But I thought, you know, it might be quite nice to actually do individual readings for each of the 12 signs for this particular eclipse. So let's quickly cut the cards and put them back together. So your first card out is Letitia. So that says to me that one of the sort of main area of focus in your particular reading is going to be around happiness. What makes you happy? Next up we've got Albus, and of course Mercury is in Gemini at the moment, but it will be moving into Cancer shortly. I think it will be in Cancer by the time we get to the lunar eclipse. So this is really about kind of purity or purifying. So it could be some clearing or some cleansing that needs to be done. Wow, Albus again. And then we've got Carse. So Carse came up last time when I did the full moon, or rather the new moon reading for YouTube. And Carse is really about restrictions and limitations of all kinds. So it can be stuff like lockdown and how this is potentially impacting on happiness and so on. But it could also be financial restrictions or limitations, given the emphasis in your chart on resources and possessions, finances. So that's potentially something that that might kind of crop up in this reading. But I'm just quickly going to do your conversion and I'll be back in a second. So welcome back, Taurus. Here is your casting sheet, which I've completed. Just to say that even though the casting sheet talks about working sort of in consecutive order from 1 right through to 12, I tend to use the Golden Dawn method, where the mothers become the cardinal houses, the daughters then become the succedent houses, and the nieces become the cadent houses. So that's just how I like to work. But anyway, I'm not going to dwell too long on this particular sheet, but just note the question, which is wisdom and lessons of the lunar eclipse for Taurus. So let's switch over quickly to our casting sheet, and as you can see, I have already laid out the cards from that conversion table onto the casting cloth. So we begin the reading by looking at the first house, because this will tell us something about your state of mind at the time of the eclipse. So it's interesting, as I said before, that this card is particularly, or the symbol is about happiness. So this is Jupiter in the sign of Pisces, and of course Jupiter used to co-rule Pisces before the discovery of Neptune, which only happened in the sort of 20th century. So what does this mean? Well, let me read to you from my little booklet on the keywords for Letitia, just so you can get an idea of, you know, the type of themes that are likely to come up for you at the lunar eclipse in Sagittarius. So keywords are happiness, joy, laughter, singing, good health, enthusiasm, unrestrained gladness and optimism, as well as grace and a lightness of spirit. So these are really auspicious kind of things, and it's fair to say that Taurus can be a little bit heavy sometimes, you know, so perhaps it's saying that at this time you need to try to embrace the unbearable lightness of being, not hold on to things if they need to, you know, kind of be released, And the reason that I say that is because one of your witnesses is Cauda Draconis, which is the south node, and this is all about release. So it's about letting go of what no longer serves you. And of course, this particular quadrogram is kind of exalted or exemplified at the full moon, and particularly at lunar eclipses. So I think it's really emphasizing the idea that at this lunar eclipse, which is about release anyway, it's a good idea to let go of certain things, perhaps in order to allow happiness in. So if you are kind of hanging on to a situation from the past that's been upsetting you, or that perhaps is sort of bringing you down, or has kind of got you stuck emotionally, I think one of the things that we're going to be seeing here, because look, we've got Cassie as your right witness, is this idea of releasing yourself from restrictions or burdens or limitations which are self-imposed, particularly emotionally, and kind of moving into a new fresh cycle, which is the end of your reading. But anyway, we'll come back to this card in a little bit. So if we take this as this is Taurus, then let's have a look at where the sun and the moon are during this eclipse. So we've got Gemini in this the second house, which is where the sun and Venus will be. So of course Venus is your ruler, your planetary ruler, and Venus will be close to the sun in Gemini at the time of the lunar eclipse. So these will be opposing the moon, which will be in the sign of Sagittarius, in the 8th house, which is the house of shared resources and of kind of things that we own with others. So we co-own with others. Then of course the other thing to say is that at the time of the full moon, the sun and the moon will be making a square to Mars in in Pisces, so to be with Neptune in the sign of Pisces. And so if we think about this being Taurus, this is Aries, that's Pisces, so this is where Mars will be. So Tristia is to do with loss or a sense of sadness or regret, which is something that we're kind of picking up here with the sun and Venus as well. So I kind of feel as though somehow at the time of the full moon, it will almost kind of amplify feelings of loss or sort of like regret, and this somehow is affecting self-esteem, because the second house is self-esteem. It can also be personal resources, so this can also be money. So it's possible that we are talking about divorce or separation of some kind, and perhaps even though you may be kind of dividing the assets up, perhaps there's still a sense of loss, kind of processing the loss of a way of life, a way of a relationship that has perhaps lasted for a long time. So that's one way this could play out. The 11th house, of course, is to do with friendships and groups, as well as hopes and wishes. So this may also have something to do with that. Mars will be making a conjunction to a particular star in the galaxy of Andromeda, which is all about emotional independence. So it could be sort of at this time that you might be sort of trying to not lean on friends perhaps as much as usual. Perhaps you've been feeling down and you kind of think that maybe you're being too much of a wet blanket and you should kind of give them a break, or maybe they're not as available perhaps as they kind of were before. Perhaps they're going through their own issues. That could be the way that kind of plays out. But if we want to look at at kind of signs or symbols, or anything to do with messages from the divine at this time, we look at the 9th house, and here we've got Kase. So it's reiterating the position that Venus and the sun will be at the time of this particular lunar eclipse, which I think is very much about sovereignty. I urge you to go and watch the extended video that I did on Venus retrograde, because I get into these themes in quite a lot of detail in that particular video, particularly around the Venus-Mars square that's happening at this particular full moon lunar eclipse. So I do think that there are issues here around limitation, restrictions of some kind, You know, and this could be the ending of something. It, you know, because we have it here with the left witness, that there's something which is kind of bookended. So some cycle has come to a close, which is reiterated again by the tail of the dragon. So this is about release. So I'm just going to read to you the main points or the keywords for this particular quadrigram. So Case is about imprisonment, isolation, delays, binding confinement, borders, locks, limits, restraint, and restrictions. And the image, I don't know whether you can see it, you know, here, but the image is of a prison cell paddock or enclosure. So it's something which is kind of hemmed in or enclosed. So that may be significant. It may be that at the moment you're not able to earn money, you're not able to go out to work, and this is kind of creating restrictions or limitations, which then has a knock-on effect on, you know, not being able to socialize, for example. This is how the 11th house could be working, that you're sad because you can't see your friends. But you know, it's saying that the source of your happiness, reiterating the card here, the same card is in the 8th house, which is shared possessions and resources. So this is also about trust and about intimacy, those things that are not necessarily material, but that we share with significant others. So it could be sort of saying, you know, don't kind of hold your happiness depends on releasing, for example, attachments to material things. If you are fighting tooth and nail, for example, in a divorce settlement, to hang on to possessions that you're only really doing for spite, then I think it's saying, you know, it's not worth it, kind of let it go. You'll feel happier and lighter if you do. But it could also be saying, you know, maybe it's time to open up and trust again. You know, if you are particularly heartbroken and you are finding it difficult to feel happy, then perhaps the answer lies in releasing any kind of blocks or protection that you may have put around your heart, and kind of allow in a new cycle to start. I know that that's really hard for Taurus. It's one of the most difficult things for Taurus to do is deal with change or kind of loss, to let go of something. But I think that's what this particular reading is telling you to do, is find your happiness again, find what sparks your joy, and sometimes that means traveling a little bit lighter, you know, and that's not kind of being restricted too much by material possessions or financial security, not always making decisions from that space, that you may find that sharing and letting go are the keys to starting a new cycle. So I think it's you know, if we look at the outcome of the reading, which is Capricornus, this is pointing to the upcoming solar eclipse in Cancer, which happens later this month, or later in June, on around about the 21st or so, and that's when a new 6-month cycle will start. So I think what it's saying is that you need to do some clearing and some releasing and healing before that time. You know, this is what the South Node is all about, is release, and that will set you up for the upcoming new moon solar eclipse in Cancer. So I hope that's been helpful, and that you have found a message in here that resonates with you. If you do, I'd love to hear your comments, so feel free to leave a comment below this video, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you know, please subscribe. It means that you won't miss any future readings that I do, and wishing you many full moon blessings, and I'll see you for my upcoming solar eclipse forecast later on in June.